Welcome to Marketing, Media and Money. I'm Gordon Muller.
And I'm Thebe, Ikalafeng.
After 40 years as the market and media research gold standard, not only in South Africa, but across Africa, the probable closure of SAARF and the demise of the industry-funded single-source database AMPS has left marketers and media agencies critically exposed when it comes to product and brand data. Thebe, you've had an interesting week. You've been part of the launch of the Brand Africa Top 100 Brands in Africa. There's some interesting ascensions to the top of the throne and some interesting slides down the ranks. Tell us about it.
And what a surprise. You know, top of the list, the Brand Africa 100 is Samsung. Number one, the most admired brand in Africa. And the one brand that used to be the number one most admired brand in Africa, MTN, has fallen 9 places down. It still remains the number one most admired African brand, but it doesn't have the position it has occupied for so many years. The last 5 years we've been doing the survey.
Yeah, I guess that's the harsh reality of performance in the marketplace. I mean, you can only do so much with communication, and eventually the reality of market performance will kick in terms of your brand positioning and your brand performance.
Of course, I mean, and you know, they've had some challenges in Nigeria.
Absolutely.
And some leadership challenges. And I think this week alone, they announced that they have their profits for the first time in their history has fallen down they've made a loss of 3 billion for the first time in their history. Wow. So it's been a real battering of really one of our crown jewels of brands in Africa.
But Samsung being the number one brand is intriguing because they have also had a couple of challenges during the course of the year. So how do you surmount those challenges in the face of what would appear to be very, very obvious brand defects and still emerge as number one? How do you do that?
Well, with Samsung, you know, the biggest challenge that we all know is the Galaxy Note 7 debacle, which cost them to recall the brand and lost, I think, 80 to 90% of their mobile unit profits. I think the way they've overcome it in the continent. One thing we must note actually is they actually never launched the brand, the model in Africa. But not only that, Samsung is actually more than the mobile. It is everything. It is the dishwasher, it's the fridge, it's the television, it's the air conditioning. So I think that was what mitigated their brand across the continent and also being present in every single African home.
I like you putting the Samsung 7 and fridge in the same conversation. If the Samsung phone is not, performing to optimal temperature, you just cool it off. I can see the brand linkage. I can see how it all works. But I mean, if you look at it in essence, I mean, what do you think differentiated those winning brands, irrespective from the losing brands, apart from those 1 or 2 exceptions? Is it key to insights? How do you make a winning brand in Africa?
Well, to make a winning brand in the continent, I think your brands must be relevant. They must respond to the conditions of the continent. They must really speak to the ambitions of Africans. Your brand must really begin to make a difference in the lives of the consumers. And I think the brands that are like Samsung, which have done that with their Built for Africa initiative, is really based on responding to the specific conditions of the continent and not using issues like lack of energy or lack of anything else as an excuse, but looking at it as an insight and as well as an opportunity. But I mean, the most important thing here that's fundamental to all great brands is insights, it's research.
And what do you do if you don't have those insights, or if you've had those insights, as is in the case in South Africa for 40 years, and somebody wants to take them away? I mean, how do you replace them? That's the big challenge. That's in fact what we need to talk about today with our colleagues from the marketing and research industry. What happens when branded and product information is removed from the insights menu, and what challenges does that set for us in terms of replacing them, and how effective can we be, not only in South Africa, but in Africa, using those branded and product insights?
Well, this makes for a very power-packed show, talking about insights. And with us in studio to discuss this issue, we have Jennifer Daniels, Telmar Regional Director for Africa and APAC and Executive Director of PAMRO. We also have Sechaba Motsiela, who is the Chairperson of Marketing Association of South Africa, and Virginia Hollis, who is the Managing Director of Magnetic Media and the Chair of South African Research Foundation. It's going to be a power-packed show.
Virginia, I'd like to get the ball rolling by posing the first question to you. I mean, single source data is the holy grail of marketing and media research around the world. For 40 years, we were like Bogey and Bacall. We had it all. Where are we now? How have we got to where we are, and where are we going? I mean, it seems remarkable that we have gone from single source, which everyone else is aiming for, to this fragmented model and particularly with respect to brands and products.
Well, if we just take a little step back for a minute, we produced the last AMPS for 2015, which was released last April, April 2016. And now there is no more products and brands. And subsequent to that, the media owners have gone off and they've done their own currency research. And we are left with nothing right now. But yesterday...
When you say we, you're talking specifically as marketers?
Marketers and agencies. Yeah. So we don't have any products or brands data right now, not any the latest stuff anyway. So we are now working towards finding a solution for that, because we can't not have products and brand data. We desperately need that to actually just form consumer insights, let alone look at how brands are performing. So we've got a long road to travel, but we started the journey yesterday.
Sechaba, I mean, from Virginia just mentioned that, you know, the media owners are now doing their own thing, they're doing their own research. I mean, does this present a problem for marketers? I mean, the decision makers who really perhaps need this information?
I think it presents an opportunity, not a problem. Because
such an optimist.
Oh.
It does indeed.
As an optimist.
Because if you look at the information that marketers need for brands and products, it has to go beyond just the psychographics. We need lifestyle, consumption, usage, and how it's linked to everything else that the consumers do. So we have to have a solution now, especially when the mediums are dynamic, consumers are dynamic. Yes, we had a good product, we had a good survey that we used to have, but it's time, I guess, also for it to evolve. It's not going to be easy, but I think it's going to be more relevant, more spot on.
But it's a challenge then, Sechaba, I guess, you know, in the past, as Gordon introduced the subject, it's a single source. Now you're going to have multiple players. As a marketer now, does it not really mean that you now have to be knocking at multiple doors to get something that used to be in one place? I know you say it's an opportunity. What's an opportunity? What? To have more lunches?
Not necessarily. It is quite important to have a well-established, credible, independent way of looking at research that is not biased towards a particular constituency. So you're not going to lose the credibility of it as long as we make sure that the platform is common and that currency is the currency that marketers can all buy into. We should aim to have that, not to fragment it. But the dynamism of it should allow for input, for new information to come through and be responsive to where the consumers are today.
Jenny, let me pose a question to you. We've, in many respects, been at the forefront of this kind of research in Africa for a long, long time. I think it's fair to say that SAARF and AMPS, to a certain extent, was a model. So we had ZAMPS in Zimbabwe, we had GAMPS in Ghana. I think we've recently, there's been a NAMPS in Nigeria, Kenya, I think on the brink of a CAMPS. What's the story across the African continent? How is the issue of product and brand dealt with across Africa?
Gordon, basically there are many countries, as you've mentioned, that have all media and product surveys, and that came out of the South African model. There was a guy called Pete Smith. He went around the rest of Africa showing individual countries how they should ask their questions about reach frequency, print, branded questions. PAMRO have a harmonized questionnaire that all countries can use up on our website. And as you said, Zimbabwe are in fact the latest and the newest AMPS on our continent.
And do they have product and brand information in that?
Do. Yes, they do.
Right down to light, medium and heavy consumption, and the volumetric analysis
and it's all a single source as well?
Yeah, single source. So the Zimbabwe Advertising Research Foundation launched that last August, and as you said, Nigeria, Botswana, Malawi, Mozambique, they've all conducted AMP surveys based on the South African model.
But I mean, given that, I mean, we were or rather South Africa were the leaders in this and have pioneered this, seems like we've now lost all those lessons. I mean, or am I exaggerating this? Because if we say it's doing well in Zimbabwe, for example, and South Africa, now we in some, after I don't know how many years, 30 years plus, we are now in some kind of a quagmire and we have no clue what to do now. We're a bit of
I think there's lots of clues now. And that's to a certain extent is what today's show is all about. And we've recently had the launch or the potential launch of the Marketing Research Foundation, which will replace the South African Research Foundation. So it's not a quagmire. We're probably emerging from the quagmire. Jenny, I mean, where are we, in terms of going forward on this?
We started the whole process yesterday. We presented to the whole industry, marketers and agencies specifically, and media owners were invited as well. And we talked about where we want to go from here. Because products and brand information is really important to us, as Sechaba will tell you. And without that, we can't form any kind of real marketing strategy or media strategy. So we need to move forward on that. But in order to do that, we need funding. And funding doesn't come easily. You have to go out and figure out a way of getting the money in and who's going to pay. And it's been a very long road for us to travel. And it's not something that has just taken 5 minutes. I mean, you can ask Sechaba, it's taken us a long time to get there. And we've still got a way to go. But what we have said is that over the next 4 weeks, we are going to be out there going to marketers saying, this is what we need. We need you to contribute money towards building this new product and brand survey. And when we get to the end of March, we'll actually know if we have a feasible way forward.
But there's going to be lots of people knocking, Virginia. There's going to be the media owners, as you say, who are doing their own surveys. They'll also be knocking. So I don't think this is a 4-week job. I think you're in for a long ride here. Because marketers themselves are trying to tighten their budget. And now you're going to go to them and say, can you contribute a little bit more? 4 weeks is a short time. You're ambitious.
I know it's a short time, but we're not asking for money now. We're not saying give us money right this moment. We're saying give us a commitment. All we want is a commitment to say, yes, we need this. Yes, we want to pursue it. Then we have a basis to work from. And we need that kind of input from marketers. And the more we can get, the better.
Well, with that, let's take a short break, and we'll be back soon to talk on this exciting topic. It's exciting to us marketers. I'm sure everybody else who loves pretty pictures is not looking at it. But to us marketers and media folks, we'll be back in a minute.
Welcome back. Jenny, I'd like to just pick up on one of the technical issues. You talked a little bit earlier about harmonized questions. Very few marketers in South Africa are just marketers in South Africa. They have a Pan-African perspective. So when it comes to the harmonized questions, so it's kind of you and it's kind of Sechaba as well. Is it the intention to harmonize these questions across Africa so that you can roll out your brand footprint from the subcontinent all the way through to those other markets as well? And how would you do that?
Definitely. We have a harmonized questionnaire for PAMRO, and we cover, as I said, print, radio, television, all the media types, outdoor, and we have segmentation questions, which are very important for multinationals. If they want to look at, we used to have pan-LSMs across the continent, everywhere outside of South Africa, so people could compare. And now we have SEMs and SESs, socio-economic segments we launched last year. But very important for marketers to look across all 54 countries.
Yeah. So in a couple of weeks' time, we'll have insight into the SEMs or whatever we're going to call them.
Yes.
But for the moment, they are the LSM replacements. I think that's what we're kind of calling them. But Sechaba, your views, I mean, how do you've been part of some of the biggest brands in the world on a Pan-African basis. How do you see this? Can you roll it out just as the Marketing Federation of South Africa, or is it bigger than that?
I guess like any brand, you just want to make sure that the information that you have as relates to your consumers is relevant and accurate, and over time you have that consistency of it. What we had in South Africa was great. Without going back, I still think we have an opportunity to have a new currency that marketers can use that perhaps could eventually be rolled out across the continent, so that whenever marketers have a look at it, at least they're operating from a single currency. But there will be some gaps, as I said earlier, and some challenges along the way, especially if marketers don't right initially make the commitment to make this currency work so that we can get traction. The sooner we get traction, the more we can begin to say how do we sit side by side with currencies that are already in place.
But Sechaba, I'm not sure I agree with your Trumpism. We were saying it was all great. That's what we had was great. Because it couldn't have been that great. If it was that great, you'd not be changing. Because Virginia, isn't one of the challenges with the AMPS and any one of those products that the fact that it was actually not representative? That, you know, if I recall in terms of how the sampling was done, it was 50% black, 50% was white, and yes, some weighting tried to make it representative, but that was a big challenge. So it couldn't have been such a good product. Well, that must be one of the reasons you moved on. And when you finish this, I want to go back to Jenny and link the two about the harmonization, because if we couldn't get it right here, how are we going to harmonize this thing across the continent?
Okay, so I think that one of the things that that AMPS did was not look at the South African population demographically, true to the census. But what we did do is we followed the money. Now that's what marketers want. They want to know who's going to buy their brands, and
they
want
the perceived money, where you thought the money was.
Where you think people are going to purchase. So if I'm selling a brand to you, I'm going to look at your demographic. I'm not going to look at a demographic that's not in a position to afford the brand. So that's what AMPS did. AMPS sampling followed the money. So yes, there was a weighting up. But was that wrong? No, that wasn't wrong, because that's what marketers want. When it comes to doing a sample to look at sentiment across the country, yes, you need to flatten it. You absolutely need to know exactly what's happening across all demographics.
Well, if you're going to follow the money, you're going to have a problem as you move up the continent, because then it means you're going to be focusing on a very, very small number of people. Are you also following the money across the continent as you're harmonizing this, or are you actually looking at because the continent is 55 countries,
well, I think
but they are all very different.
Pan-African is already following the money, because we've realized if you MTN, just going to Nigeria is still following the money.
But in terms of in-country, that is a challenge.
Yeah. It is a challenge, but we prefer to have a look at the demographics of the country, and the research has to reflect who's living in the country, because everyone buys fast-moving consumer goods. Not everyone's looking for a high-end motor vehicle or insurance policy. So many of the multinationals target everybody. So we have also challenges in that it cannot always be the same type of research. Questionnaire-based, face-to-face is too expensive. Some countries like Malawi have a very big rural population. So you have to get to them in a different way. So you'll see a lot of the new research is hybrid. Mobile phones, that touches everyone. There are big companies in Africa looking at radio measurement, television measurement on mobile phones. So you have to adapt to the country you're going to and look at the challenges you faced within the country.
In other words, we have to behave like marketers.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's why I was very optimistic about the opportunity that presents, that now we'll be able to make a product that's tailor-made to the new dynamics, like the penetration of cellular, as well as all the other apps that we will be able perhaps to gather more sensitive information, maybe even real time, who knows.
Yes. And I think what's important as well is that we recognize the fact that there were mistakes that were made. And we acknowledge the fact that there were mistakes made. And there was a lot of criticism leveled at SAARF, which was, some of it was justified and some of it was quite disingenuous. Because people used the data and it served marketers' purposes at the time. But going forward, believe me, it's our intention to look at best practice, to look at how we sample correctly and to suit what marketers require, and at the same time look at how we're going to get to do the questionnaire. Do we do mobile? Do we do digital? What do we do? Because you've got, in this country, you've got gated communities. You can't get into a gated community with a face-to-face questionnaire. It's never going to happen. But we do know that we have to get into those communities. So how? So that's our challenge going forward.
Well, one of the points which was raised by Sechaba, by your colleague Greg Gordon, the CEO of Marketing Association SA, was the need to have a partnership, a hybrid solution between an industry-driven solution and a private sector commercial interest. So the partnering of marketers with independent research companies, and I think that's the key thing. I mean, you know,
it is absolutely crucial, because in as much as we talk about whether the instruments was perfect, we have to consider the funding. That was that funding sustainable in the long term? That's why now the new subscriber model says, let's come through what does it look like, and you have a say as to how much contribution you make, at what point where you can then say this is the ceiling, because now it becomes too unaffordable. So we have to also acknowledge that funding this type of research has to be taken into consideration.
But
No,
did
the
you
model-
have to
yeah.
did you have to collapse SAARF and go create a whole new organization parallel? I hope I'm not being controversial here.
Just a little.
Just a taste. But you know what I'm saying?
I'm all in favor of collapsing SAARF for one particular reason. That the SA component needs to go. I love
I agree
replacing South
entirely with you
Africa
on
with
that
an
one.
M. I think that's a brilliant insight.
I agree entirely.
And those of you who
Yes.
know when I'm on my bandwagon
Yes.
with the Advertising Media Association of South Africa, I'd like to see the SA go out of that as well. Let's have the African Media Association. So that
for
component of it, I think,
So we
is
agree-
is
we
an
agree on
innovation.
that.
Absolutely. I think it's a brilliant innovation.
Yeah.
And you know, it's also a different use of the word single source. Single source used to mean everything in one box.
Sure.
But if we start talking about harmonized questions and hybrid solutions, now single source means I can sit in Nairobi or Lagos or Johannesburg and I can drive my Pan-African campaign off one mindset, one type of questioning approach, or one sort of harmonized question. I think that's a big breakthrough. So I love the thought of closing it down.
Did we have to close it out? So you are saying, for example, if one established brand, Coca-Cola, wants to change the name, it's better to close the business. And if you want to change and go start another parallel
Not
organization,
closing the
they
business, it's
they could have
renaming the
they could have
business. We're not
rebranded.
closing it, we're renaming
I
it.
think that there were a lot of issues with the old name and with the heritage
Yep.
that came with SAARF as well. And I think as reluctant as we are to close it down and to lose that institutional knowledge, the knowledge will go with us into the new foundation.
Okay.
But we have to lose the name in order to come to be a phoenix rising from the ashes.
So we're not closing it down, we are rebranding.
Rebranding. And you know all about branding. That's
Well, a little bit.
But you know what it also provides, I think, as an opportunity, Sechaba, is one of the problems with SAARF was an obsession with trending. And we sacrificed agile data, we sacrificed shifts in data so that we
Any
could
innovation,
trend any
any
innovation
change,
in the name of trending. And I welcome this because it's a watershed. It means you can start best practice, best application, best questions, best approach, best funding, whatever. Clean start. Let's go from here.
I almost want to celebrate excellence coming out of Africa as a contribution in this space, like the previous research methodology was at a time when it was best in class. I have no doubt if we take those insights and the knowledge that we are going to provide marketers with a product that is better and more sensitive and relevant for now.
One of the challenges is your use of the word currency. So it was intriguing to me to sit with marketers this week and listen to their use of the word currency. Up till now in the discussion, currency has referred to reading, listening, or viewing. It's really intriguing that marketers are viewing product consumption and branded consumption as your own currency. And the question which was raised is about ownership of that currency. The marketers want to own their currency in the same way as the broadcasters or the publishers want to own their currencies.
But I guess the main thing is the independence and the credibility of that currency, that as broadly as possible, that we can see it for what it is. That's why when we talk about this subscriber model from a marketer's contribution, we need as many marketers as possible to come to the party so that then we begin to raise the credibility of that currency.
Well, I'm looking forward to the relaunch, the rebranding. I'm just surprised I wasn't asked to rebrand this, but that's a different subject.
Oh, I'm so
we can
sorry.
deal with that at another time offline. But I think it's a great opportunity. I think, Gordon, we don't have to discuss this with you because you already bought into this.
You know what? The only people who should fear this are the people who fear change. If you don't like change, you shouldn't be in advertising. Change is good. The market is changing. We need to change with it. But this is phase one. Within a couple of weeks' time, there will be another massive issue which we will bring to the show, which is the launch of the Establishment Survey, which is the skeletal framework that replaces the old AMPs. So at that, we're going to have the broadcasters and the Publisher Research Council and the Advertising Media Forum, the agencies. So they're going to talk about what they want from Establishment Survey, and we'll talk about this. And I think in discussion with marketers, what's become clear as well, that we can't rule out the possibility of this branded solution being partnered in some way, shape or form with the establishment survey.
After all, we're talking about the same consumer, isn't
We
it?
talk about the same consumer, and
Same
we're talking
consumer.
about the same continent. So that's why I'm excited as well that you are bringing the rest of the continent together through PAMRO. So,
And
I
when
mean,
we talk
it's
hybrid as
very
well, we need to
exciting
understand
times,
that
yeah.
there are many instances which we spoke about of hybrid marketers. So DSTV is a hybrid marketer. They are a broadcaster and they're a marketer. The SABC is a broadcaster and they are a marketer. And we recognize that there are lots of joint interests in this, and which is where I get also a lot of hope for the joint solution. Joint interest, joint solution.
exciting times for the industry, exciting times for the continent. Thank you very much,
Thanks for
Jennifer.
being here.
Thank you very much, Sechaba. Thank you very much, Virginia. It's been another good show at Marketing, Media and Money.